manage on this site, which is trash. Also in blue will be our composting facility that we have under design and will be constructed and completed by the summer of 2016. To fill this campus, though, we have a program on the streets right now where we have a request for proposals and a call for innovators that will bring those businesses on site that could be set up shop here and to start producing those products. And also, we're looking to see if we have those innovators that have those emerging technologies that aren't quite ready, that we can help further develop to help us provide solutions for our issues as it relates to solid waste.
It was SmithKline at that time, but now is known as GlaxoSmithKline. Now he's also the chairman of Palace Securities Limited, and he also served as chairman of Nestle Nigeria from 1999 to 2013. He's chairman of FTN Cocoa Processors, and he also serves on the board of many companies, including Presco PLC. Even with all this responsibility that he has time also to be a facilitator at the Lagos Business School of Pan-African University. I think he's going to teach us today how he's able to manage his time doing all these things. He's the chairman of the International Chamber of Commerce Nigeria chapter, member of the governing council, of Ajayi Crowther University in Oyo State. He was a member of Senate of the University of Lagos from 2002 to 2007, and he has served also as president of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. Coming here at home, he is a high-ranking chief titled the Babalaje of Egbaland. And as I said before, has been conferred with national honors of Officer of the Order of Nigeria since 2003. He's a chartered accountant and a fellow of the Institute of Directors of London. And I would like to invite Chief Oshuka, the chairman for today, for his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Shoremekun, for the flattering words about me. I will not say no, but you flattered me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here to be part of this epoch-making initiative of Resource Innovation and Solutions Network Nigeria. The co-promoters, Dr. Lanre and Mr. Adewale, have been working for the past 2 years in the particular to make sure there is awareness of this initiative. And that is why we are here today. I want to commend the promoters for the work just begun. It is going to be a long journey, but I'm sure it is a worthy journey. Sustainability is to do things today without jeopardizing the future and the future generations. So it is a continuous exercise.
Concerns right now. What you can see here is we did own research what's going on with all these exporting cars. We have a high number. Our research that there's a very huge market of illegal export. And the illegal export means cars are exported in containers, they are cutted in the half, or the roof is cutted and then pressed into a container. And then the container is shipped through different routes to Eastern Europe, to Russia, for example, to Arabia, and also to Africa. And we have now a lot of proofs with this research, what we did. And with this proof, we go right now to the European Commission and complain, because it's not a very good basis for a legal acting company if you lose a lot of cars, because we want to recycle cars, and if they go out of Germany, if they are exported from the European market, we don't have the material and we cannot gain the resources of the cars.
Yeah. We have various funders all around Lagos. But collecting these cars from Lagos, the logistics of picking them is actually where the cost is. And I'm sure Dr. Dr. Beats probably did not show us the details of the cost of collection. You'll have seen that is actually where the job is. It's not the technology of conversion. It's the cost of picking these vehicles down there. Well, so going on into my, we developed data sheet. These are lemon staff. Don't mind the stomach, right? It's the lemon staff that go on the streets and collect data. Okay, fine. So these various areas where we collect all data right there in the field. Thank you. All right. We collect raw data on the field, and what we do when you have a high volume of vegetable, and our waste storage system also accounts for that. Then talking about the gutters, and you're right. Our gutters and canals, we still have issues of field in those ones. But the shorelines are the areas where we're focused right now, and because we want our ecotourism and making sure that we have the aqua tourism, where we can use our waterways, the shoreline especially, navigation and the rest of it. So we focus on that area. We are making progress into the inner areas, and we have government offices. You don't have a conducive work environment for, it's all about anarchy. And with that, we don't have a conducive environment to work. But we're able to cluster, and we created, that was the building, that was the new building, created a bit of green and uncluster those kind of, so that you can think straight and work perfectly well in that kind of an area. Maybe you've forgotten also, Lagos used to be like this. That was Mushi then. You can see that building out there. You know, it used to be like that. You walk on the street of Lagos, and with refuse smell belching out every morning from there. But it has changed. You can see what we have at Mushi over there. Just to remind those who are not in Lagos before, I think we can just flip through and round up. We were doing a bit of cleaning also. We have litters out there just to show you a bit of what we're doing. Then we have our poor communities. We can see on the left-hand side, that was Makoko area, and they were dumping right in open areas there, and we went there to now turn the area. You can see the building at the back there to show the indicators. We turned it to green for them, and the Makoko right now, and they weigh the waste there, they weigh the recyclables, and they make money from that center at Makoko right now. And those are the vehicles also, those are the vehicles we were using in 2005. Those vehicles are refuse on their own, so, you know, end of life. I think that vehicle was used, abused, and overused, you know, so I don't know this, but we had even had life or not, I don't know. But that was it, until we changed to that, you know. And this was the landfill side also. It used to be that. 2004, when you enter Lagos, then the belching smoke welcome you from the toll gate, you know. And but right now, you see green right now. And over there, we have the methane, and we have the Norwegian government buying our sea out there. And I think the energy from the plant will come on very soon with a partnership with the Norwegian government. So we have a CR under the methane buyback program. And I think we have a program also going on with Lafarge. And Lafarge is been talking with us on the use of tires for the RDF, for the cure. So we have that one going, because we recycle tires, plastic and everything in Lagos right now. So we have a partnership going on with many companies. And I think it's a fruitful one. And I think it's apt for this a sustainable solution for our future. Thank you very much for listening, and welcome to Lagos.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oresanya. Question and answer. As you all know, the discussion part is as important as the presentation itself. That's why we're here. You can also see that we've made up some time in trying to encourage the presenters to shorten their presentations. I would like to keep to that trend, but I would like to suggest that we take just maybe 3 comments and questions. We're still going to have the panel, and there's still going to be a lot of time to talk about this. So can we just have maybe 2?
We face changing feed interests, making it difficult to calculate your return of investment. Also in the area of clean energy, business is limited since gas supply is mainly restricted to the shorelines and road infrastructure is not favorable. As a result, many entrepreneurs feel left alone with unclear changing regulations and without proper access to reliable information. Next slide. I have already mentioned our activities in the beginning of this presentation, so looking at the obstacles of the entrepreneurs are facing, we also decided that there is a need to tackle the knowledge and information with organizing the knowledge and information gap with organizing a number of seminars, sensitization and networking events. So we started up with a business roundtable and luncheons focusing on the different areas of need. We also started last year in 2000.
See these huge, great windmills. I wonder whether there's any intention to assist Nigeria in developing wind power, wave power, and other, renewable energy of that nature, and what you think the potential is, because there was a time when we used to be told that you can't have solar energy in Lagos because of the humidity or the cloud cover, and now we discovered that it is possible. Perhaps I can just also take the opportunity, since Mr. Oresanya is back, to also talk about when my batteries for my inverter are spent, they're taken away, I don't know what happens to them. But I used 100 other batteries for other things in my telephones and so on. And I always hesitate and end up throwing them into the trash that you're an expert in. And I wonder whether there's a means of really publicizing ways of disposing of some of this waste that is not going to be harmful to the environment, but it's also not going to require somebody to go out of their way to dispose of it, because we don't seem to have recyclable waste bins as they have in other countries, paper waste and so on, even though we may do it in our real life just in order to reduce the amount of trash that we have to dispose of. So I wonder what can be done about bringing the public really into this, even if we're not engaged in picking up the nylon waste and so on.
Will I answer first your question? Yeah. You were asking about wind power or in general. What we're trying to do with our activities, we're trying to inform German, or we let's say German business usually contact us with their products and ask questions. Okay, is there a possibility to enter the market? So what we have been trying to do during the last 2.5 years to find out where are the needs in the market mainly, and we are mainly working demand driven. That means for Nigeria, where there's different wind capacities have been measured all over the country. However, it doesn't seem to be, as of now, very much of interest for companies to come in here. There is a small project, as far as I'm aware, in Katsina. I don't know about the status of the project right now, because due to the problematic situation in the north, the installations and commencements have been hampered by a lot of threats. And so of course the shorelines are very nice. If you look in Germany, in the northern part, all the shorelines, you have a lot of wind power stations. As of now, wind power is quite a bit of an expensive enterprise and very maintenance intensive. expensive. Also when
penetration of these kind of products. So I think it will be useful, and I want to implore those who could really do this right here, to stress collaboration. There's a need for collaboration between those who are out there and those who are in academics. You see, the companies, the government, the public sector, the private sector, NGOs, to have an active collaboration, just like Lemon is doing, but I think it can be expanded.
We're not bingo electronic waste to the you don't. And I think if you check the bill, if you get into the check the bill given to you, it is stated there underneath, special waste are categorized as electronic waste, organic waste, and the rest of them. Don't commingle with domestic waste. You call toll-free lines, 5577, 070 8060 1020. They are toll-free lines. Okay. You don't pick me?
Gap between research knowledge and what the private sector or the public sector is trying to do, and that really is affecting the success of some of the programs that would actually help us to address some of the environmental issues that we're looking at. And finally, I mean, the question you raised about why can't the private sector, for instance, go into the business of recycling some of this waste. They need data. They need data to be able to know what will be the sustainable level of waste that is available. That will then determine what kind of plants, what kind of
forestry, where under that part, ministry as agreed to give us about the building of trees, for the planting of trees and tree crops. And after a period of time, waste from that industry, we'll put them back, we'll be using them during our production processes. So these are things that we have been looking at, and we anticipate that in the nearest future, we'll be able to.
It wasn't so 20 years, 30 years ago. There are some junior schools springing up in Nigeria and Lagos and so on, offering up to city and guilds qualification. How far is your organization willing and prepared to assist and collaborate in skills development in these vocational schools?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, we have, as I mentioned it in my short, very short presentation indeed, I have a colleague, we have in the AHK, a delegation of German Industries and Commerce, we have one department on dual vocational training. It's financed by the German government, and we are training trainers on certain trades there, and trying to develop it's a sort of like a pilot project, financed.
Of the elections. The backstory, that's Femi and myself in Arizona. Dan had mentioned that this whole idea of the sustainability school, which has given rise to Reason, came about by three friends sitting down and complaining about Nigeria, as we all do all the time. And Voice of Reason said, why don't we do something about it? There's a problem with sustainability as a pill for development. We always look at development. This was, we call ourselves the Three Musketeers. We've been on this journey. Dan is almost in Nigeria now. He's been here twice, but I think he wants to spend the rest of his life here. He just sees it as a big challenge. So this was when we signed the Reason as the first international hub of the resource and the innovation and solutions network in the whole world. Amsterdam is coming after us, and I think that's something that we should celebrate. Next slide. So I debated with Femi about this slide. I don't think we want to talk about challenges today because every time Nigerians come together, we talk about challenges, problems, and problems. So these are for coming by.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adewale. Yes, it's good to continue to talk, and just like you ended, it's also good to take action. So working it out and acting is also very important, and also implementing what needs to be implemented as quickly as possible. Now we go into the second panel session, and I'd like to invite the panelists to please come forward. We have with us Dr. Lanre Towry. He seems to have gotten up from his seat now. Oh yes, Dr. Lanre Towry was the former Honorable Commissioner for Housing in Lagos State between 1999 and 2003. He's also the author of Housing Policy and the Dynamics of Housing Delivery in Nigeria and Lagos State as Case Study. I'm sure all know who Dr. Lanre Towry is. I also like to invite Mrs Damilola Ogunbiyi, the General Manager of Lagos State Electricity Board. I'm sure you also know her very well. I'd like to invite Dr. Uwen Ite, who is the head capacity building, the Shell Petroleum Development Company. Please come forward. Mr. Clem Ugoji, Director of Public Affairs and Communication of Coca-Cola Nigeria. Mrs. Temitope Oguntoko, Sustainability Manager, Lafarge Africa. And also, I'd like to invite the presenter for this session, supposed to be Sir Chris Obeche, who is not able to make it and is represented here by Dr. Ijoma Kwadu, who is the manager for the First Bank Sustainability Center of the Lagos Business School. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here, albeit as a clone. Clone to Dr. Chris Obeche, who would have loved to be here, but is unavoidably absent. As a wife, mother of four, and a professional, I often feel that I need a clone. I feel like even in the 1860s, you think that it was today because there were issues of overcrowding as the city grew as a migrant, initially a slave port, and then of course later there was huge in-migration of people from various parts of West Africa into Lagos. So overcrowding was an issue, and there were issues of course of crime and of pollution, have a voice and some influence on the design of projects that impact their lives, that impact their environments. So the private sector can act as an advocate of standards and of professional ways of doing things. And secondly, the private sector features as partners. They are partners in PPPs, and in so doing, it's important that they're cognizant of some of the pitfalls to these projects that have been highlighted, just to make sure that that the PPP is sustainable, because actually PPPs have a very high failure rate. In fact, there was a recent World Bank study that saw that there's in fact just 13% of the portfolio of PPPs in developing countries were actually viable, And then thirdly and finally, the private sector can be models of sustainability by themselves being sustainable, having internal structures, leadership structures, and structures at every level of the organization that emphasize sustainability, so that we We didn't believe that the solution was just putting a pure solar solution. We realized that if we wanted to say we were going to have at least 9 hours of power for the school and 24 hours for the primary healthcare center, we had to have a backup battery solution. So we have a hybrid battery solution with inverter, with charge controller, with solar. But one of the more interesting things about it is that once the batteries are fully charged, you can actually get direct sunlight when you do have the sunlight, and when they're not charged, you can go back. We also put a lot of preventive methods in place. You can imagine this is rural and riverine Lagos, so from Ikeja, some of these destinations about 4 or 5 hours to get to. So in terms of, in the schools, when it's 4 o'clock, the whole system shuts down. So there's no case of abusing the system or trying to turn things on. But in the primary healthcare centers, we have a load monitor, just like if you had an inverter at home. When you pass a certain threshold that we have prescribed, everything turns off. So you turn off that iron or whatever you had plugged in, because we did a set criteria of what had to be plugged in. And then if you buy any new equipment, you have to let us know for us to reset those criteria. Okay, so this is before we start anything at the electricity board. We always build a prototype within our office. It's important for us to understand the workings of a system before we go and spend government finances and taxpayers' money on building such a large project. You can actually bring it in, you can scan the panels, you can scan the batteries. In one of our earlier solar projects, we realized that what was said on the box was not really what was said. We thought we'll get X amount of that, so that was a complete disaster. So for that, we bought a whole load of equipment to test. And if anybody, it's also a tool that we have in Lagos. If anybody wants to do a solar project or is worried about equipment, they can bring it to this test center and we can test it for you and let you know if it's the right equipment. Sorry, moving on. So thank you for listening. Here's our contact details.
Success factor for sustainable development, the type that we are talking about today. I've had the privilege of interacting with pretty much everybody on this panel over the last 2.5 years. So it is easy for me. I'll start with Coca-Cola. I'm very aware some of what you guys have done in the past and some of the things.
The bottom line of your business, then it becomes an integral part of your business process, and it is something that you do as a matter of lifestyle. Specifically to the area of PET bottle recycling, which Femi alluded to. For us in Nigeria, we started the PET bottle business in around 2005 when we introduced, around 2000, when our packaging for Coca-Cola, for our what we call our core products, Coca-Cola, Fanta, and Sprite, came into the PET bottles. Prior to that time, of course, it was the glass bottles, and we all knew what the challenges around glass bottles are. Consumers needed, the convenience of PET.
Develop different programs that ensures that that ensures that we are working consistently with our stakeholders. We have been able to, for us at Lafarge, we are not looking at sustainable development from the perspective of corporate social responsibility alone. Like Dr. Owagu, when she did that presentation, she mentioned the fact that they did a research recently where they were trying to check the awareness of people on the topic of sustainable development. So from that research, for instance, and which is what we find all around us, even in Nigeria, we find a situation where people are particular issues that have to do with housing, because there is a growing demand for infrastructure, which is being driven by a larger population. So if you look at housing issues, for instance, presently in Nigeria, we say there is a deficit of there's a housing deficit of about 17 million. And Lafarge, we are contributing our quota in this area with partnership with the Federal Ministry of Lands and Urban Development. We are working with them to, they have given us some land in Abuja where we are going to be building affordable housing, affordable houses for the masses. That is on one hand.
That Nigerian students, for the first time 2 years ago, built cars that were racing with cars built by other students from Europe. Has anyone heard about it before? You have not. My goodness.
We supported students from the University of Lagos and students from the University of Benin. They build car. The whole idea is you build a car that can travel the fastest distance, the least amount of fuel. So you can see it's a challenge. As we speak, 3 other universities are competing this year.
So I would like to see that in the future. Then for the Lagos Electricity Development Board, from what I've seen so far, it's like the concentration is about public infrastructure. That's it.
It was important that Loma did it first. They did it themselves so that they knew exactly what it would take. And I'm looking at it because you also said something about getting the public to buy into it and also ensuring that they don't get ripped off by the private sector, because the private sector's primary motive is profit maximization. So I just want to see if there's what your view is. Do you agree with him that in order for the public sector to get private sector participation in, it's important that it's first test run?
Saying, and this is even just looking at, government balance sheets and stuff, and saying that, okay, are we going to power Dolphin, and this might seem controversial, Dolphin Estate, are we going to give power to Lasut Hospital? I think it's a no-brainer. We'll give power to Lasut because that takes about 1.5 million Lagosians every day. We are hoping for a situation where there's like a desegregation of power, and they can understand that we could possibly have a state regulator who can develop sustainable
of a business case. So sometimes it does take, the public sector to actually do a project, or a private sector organization to do a project for others to be convinced, other companies to be convinced that it's viable, it's financially, viable, and that they will get, the returns on their investment that they envisage. So many cases, and the reason why there is that need for some kind of concrete evidence of a business viability of a project is that.
As Sao Paulo, those are statistics. And what you get when you get urbanization, you get opportunities. That's why people come here. When I was a commissioner, I had the statistics of how many thousands of people come into Lagos State on a daily basis, and they don't leave. So you now know that anywhere in the world, when you have urbanization, you create wealth. And I believe that urbanization is actually good. What the Chinese did is they flipped it around. Instead of encouraging people to come to the cities, specifically for work, they built the cities in the villages. The cabinet to approve electric buses. Because the level of pollution in Lagos is probably one of the highest in the world. And the effects of lead pollution are invisible. You don't know what is happening to you. The amount of smoke, the carbon monoxide rather, that you're ingesting, you're breathing, you don't know it until the doctor tells you you've got cancer. So that goes to the regulatory framework, which is, who is it who's responsible for allowing these cars to come into the country? Somebody must be. Are there no rules which say, actually there are. There's some rules which say that you can't import cars which are more than 5 years old. Is that correct? Somebody confirm. True or false? 10 years old. That's even too long. A car which you can't drive in the United States or Germany or one of the advanced countries, they use here, they think it's wonderful. And then somebody said, okay, the reason why people buy cars which are 20, 30 years old is because they can't afford new cars. That to me is wrong thinking. What we should be saying is that why are people buying these rickety cars? What is happening to decent public transportation? We all go to London, or I know all of you go to London or somewhere like that, and you get into the underground train. You go inside the bus. The members of parliament in the United Kingdom, they go by train. They don't have sirens. These are serious issues, really, which means that all of us sitting here should challenge the policymakers. Why is the country in a mess? And there are enough clever people in this Nigeria who can solve these problems. That's why when Bernard, I think, yes? When she mentioned human capacity, I would say we have enough capacity. That's what I always say at international conferences, where you have the experts that get up on the stage and say that Africa suffers from human capacity inadequacy. What did China and India do about the human capacity?